Welcome to my presentation on how to effectively manage virtual teams in face of the coronavirus. The coronavirus has forced most organizations and many small businesses around the world to reorganize on how work is conducted. For many organizations, this means having employees work from home. This move comes with several challenges, not only due to the fact that co-located teams have become dispersed teams, but also because your employees might not be used to working remotely. Hi, my name is Arona Maskil, and I am a cross-cultural global team builder. I work with and in organizations who are transitioning to working with dispersed teams by helping build skill sets to overcome virtual work challenges in multicultural teams. I also help build skill sets for managers who already work in a virtual setting. So let's begin. Virtual work did not begin with the coronavirus. Virtual work has been around for a number of years, but it has become more and more popular among organizations who want to utilize the advantages of diverse teams, reduce costs, both in production and manpower. In fact, virtual work has grown from 62 to 89% between the years 2012 and 2018. Today, 89% of work in global organizations is conducted through virtual mediums. So let's start by defining what virtual work is. Working virtually is any interaction that is not conducted face-to-face, can take place anytime across time zones with anyone, and not limited to any geographic region. Basically, all one needs is online processes, technology, and people. Managing virtual teams comes with a comprehensive toolbox and is a learned skill. In this presentation, I will share best practices in the following 3 areas: goals and roles of team members, how to communicate in the virtual environment, and how to keep engagement and trust high. Goals and roles. Clarify roles. Teams that suddenly change work patterns, moving from co-located to distributed, need to rethink how to accomplish their tasks. And as a manager, you need to ensure that everyone understands his or her individual roles and how each person contributes to the outcome. Clarifying roles will help your employees understand who they can turn to for help, so as to alleviate you as the team manager from being overloaded with questions. Establish clear objectives. Make deliverables, expectations, and deadlines explicit and actionable. I recommend using project management tools and incorporating subtasks for every step in a project so that everyone can see what the other is doing. This helps in maintaining cohesion and team spirit. Map skills and capacity. Your team might be working on multiple teams and projects at once. During a crisis period, your team members might be pulled into multiple directions, which might cause both stress and confusion as to priorities and capabilities. To minimize the impact, think about how you can reorganize roles or bring in help from the outside. Changing priorities. In a volatile situation, such as we are facing now, changing priorities might require you to onboard more people to your team. That said, onboarding a new team member while everyone is working from home can make it difficult to build team cohesion and trust. So invest time to formally introduce new team members and stay actively involved to oversee that they are successfully integrated with the existing team. Normalizing new work environments. Working from home creates distractions and background noise. It is important that you, as well as each one of your team members, know the working environment of their colleagues. I recommend that each person share via a virtual tour what their workspace looks like and what are the potential distractions, such as a baby crying, children are now home due to schools closing, a dog that might bark, etc. This will help colleagues develop an understanding of everyone's work context and helps in establishing trust and empathy. Technology. Do all your people have what they need to work from home? Make sure everyone has a solid internet connection, a laptop and a charger, and a set of headphones. Engagement. Structure daily check-ins. I recommend increased communication, especially if some of your co-located employees might not be used to working virtually. There is no such thing as over-communication in a virtual environment. This could take a form of a series of one-on-one calls if your employees work more independently from each other, or a team call if their work is highly collaborative. The important feature is that the calls are regular and predictable so that your employees know that they can consult with you and that their concerns and questions will be heard and answered. Mediums of communication. Email is great, but it alone is insufficient. Remote workers benefit from having a richer technology, such as video conferencing, that gives participants many of the visual cues that they would have if they were working face-to-face. Video conferencing has many advantages, especially for smaller groups. Visual cues allow for increased mutual knowledge about coworkers and also help to reduce the sense of isolation among teams. Video is also particularly useful for complex or sensitive conversations, as it feels more personal than written or audio-only communication. There are other circumstances when quick collaboration is more important than visual detail. For those situations, provide mobile-enabled individual messaging functionality like Slack, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc., which can be used for simpler, less formal conversations, as well as time-sensitive communication. Rules of engagement. Remote work becomes more efficient and more satisfying when managers set expectations for the frequency, means, and ideal timing of communication for their teams. For example, we use video conferencing for daily check-in meetings, but we use IM when something is urgent. Also, if you can, let your employees know the best way and time to reach you during the workday. I recommend that managers establish these rules of engagement with their employees as soon as possible, ideally during the first online check-in meeting. While some choices about specific expectations may be better than others, the most important factor is that all employees share the same set of expectations for communication. Be present for your employees. It's critical that your people feel supported by and connected to you. Create an environment that they feel comfortable contacting you and asking questions or sharing their concerns. Encouragement and emotional support. Especially in the context of an abrupt shift to remote work, it is important for managers to acknowledge stress, listen to employees' anxieties and concerns, and empathize with their struggles. If a newly remote employee is clearly struggling but not communicating stress or anxiety, ask them how they are doing. Even a general question such as, "How is this remote work situation working out for you so far?" can elicit important information that you might not otherwise hear. Once you ask the question, be sure to listen carefully to the response and briefly restate it back to the employee to ensure that you understand that you are understood correctly. Let the employee's stress or concerns rather than your own be the focus of the conversation. Virtual meetings. Holding virtual meetings without a camera is like communicating in a black hole. When we communicate face-to-face, we interpret much of the communication through body language, facial gestures, and voice intonation. In a virtual environment, asking all your team members to open the camera is a must. Select a facilitator. You can act as the moderator of the meeting, or you can appoint a team member. This will contribute to feeling part of the team and having an active role. Distribute agenda beforehand. Just as in a face-to-face business meeting, distribute an agenda beforehand so that everyone is clear what are the items that will be discussed in the meeting. Identify objectives. By identifying objectives in advance, team members can prepare their input. Ground rules. Who talks and for how long? Make sure that you begin the meeting with some small talk, asking everyone how they are doing. This should be done by a roundtable method to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak. Feedback on work performed. Take time to give feedback on the work performed. This is important so that the team stays motivated and productive. Group input. In a team, there are always one or two members who tend to dominate the conversation, which allows for the shyer ones not to participate. Try to create an environment which allows input from everyone. You might need to turn to the non-participating members and ask for their input. Summarize. Allow time for questions, establish deadlines, and ensure that everyone knows what their tasks are. I always recommend that a team manager asks the team to repeat back what they understood from the meeting, so that if there are any misunderstandings, they will be cleared out before the meeting ends. Evaluate for next meeting. Reflect on the meeting and evaluate if it was effective, if everyone was heard. If you manage a large team, reflection also goes to evaluating if all team members were needed at the meeting. As for the number of participants, try to limit the meeting to no more than 5 members, as otherwise it is both difficult to manage such a meeting and will be challenging for everyone to be heard. Virtual water cooler. When we work side by side, much of our social interactions happen by the water cooler / coffee machine. That is where we update each other about work, personal happenings, gossip about what's going on in the company. This kind of trust building and connectivity does not exist in a virtual environment. Provide opportunities for social interactions. One of the most essential steps a manager can take is to structure ways for employees to interact socially, that is, having formal conversations about non-work topics while working remotely. This is true for all remote workers, but particularly so for workers who have been abruptly transitioned out of their offices. Group lunches and/or coffee breaks. For ensuring the ongoing cohesiveness of the team and to reduce feelings of isolation, I recommend that you create a virtual water cooler culture. It can be daily or weekly routines such as group lunches or coffee breaks, even happy hours over video, or anything else that will make up for the non-existing face-to-face interactions. Small talk before business. A basic social interaction is to begin each team call with non-work items. For example, you might say, we're going to spend the first few minutes just catching up with each other. So how was everyone's weekend? Virtual fun. Virtual fun can be virtual pizza parties in which pizza is delivered to all team members at the time of a video conference, or virtual office parties in which party care packages can be sent in advance to be opened and enjoyed simultaneously. While these types of events may sound artificial or forced, experienced managers report that virtual events help reduce feelings of isolation, promoting a sense of belonging and raised productivity. Conflicts in a virtual team. Conflicts happen regardless of work arrangements. Conflict is neither good or bad. It depends on how you approach it. Conflict can lead to creative solutions, but at the same time, it can also slow down progress and processes. However, by its nature, the virtual environment lends itself more easily to conflicts than traditional work arrangements. Conflicts happen when people don't have the same expectations about outcomes or goals, and when there are communication misunderstandings. When we don't see each other, we can hide behind a screen, and so conflicts may be overlooked or may lie under the surface for a long time before problems are noticed. As a virtual leader, you need to be sensitive to conflicts. To that end, written communication does not lend a hand to identifying conflicts. So often in an email, Slack, or other forms of written communication, conflict can go undetected. Conflict can occur in the following situations: when stress levels are high, when there are sudden organizational changes or company direction which might cause confusion and lead to conflict. If conflicts are not dealt with, they will cause decreased productivity. People will become disengaged and will start multitasking on conference calls. Lastly, morale will decrease, people will become angry and frustrated. So what are the best practices for solving conflicts? Prepare employees for conflict. At the onset of working virtually, the team leader needs to explain that conflicts may happen, they're natural, and that it's very natural not to agree on everything. One-on-one time. It is important to schedule one-on-one conversations with each team member in order to encourage feedback and acknowledge the person's feelings. Make the first move to resolve the conflicts. As a team manager, make the first move to resolve the conflict. Conflicts need to be addressed early on or they spiral out of control. Establish rules for solving conflicts. Conflicts will not resolve by themselves. Always take the lead in identifying the conflict. When you set up your virtual team, make sure you have guidelines on how to solve conflict situations. The conflict needs to be discussed and shown how the conflict affects the bigger picture and not just the particular situation. Create a working environment that enables employees to speak up and ask for help in solving a conflict situation. Don't solve the conflict in public during a conference call. Follow up privately and find ways to diffuse the conflict. We are coming towards the end of my presentation. Some of you listening to this presentation might already be familiar with managing virtual teams, but to others, this might be just as big of a change as it is to your employees who are now having to work from home. I recommend that you take a few minutes and ask yourselves the following questions. And if the answer to some of them is no or not enough, you will then have the awareness of improving those specific interactions with your team. The keys to effective remote work. To recap the ingredients that make remote work effective: human touch and trust, creating a water cooler environment and ensuring a high sense of trust, communicating effectively, which is the cornerstone to success, creating an environment of engagement, sharing, and defined mediums of communication. Lastly, making sure that the objectives and division of tasks and roles are well defined. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and found it of value to your work I want to wish you good luck in managing your dispersed teams, and please stay healthy and safe.